Tremble Tremble and At the Gates are two exhibitions exploring feminism. In the case of Tremble Tremble, it was the artwork made by Jessie Jones that represented Ireland at the Venice Biennale, and I was the commissioner and curator. And we were really trying to make an artwork that looked at the history of female fight towards self-determination in Ireland, very much in the context of Ireland's then early campaign to repeal the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, which would basically give abortion rights to Irish women. But think about this in an older history of feminism. The artist was very influenced by an Italian theorist, Silvia Federici, who likened the moment of the early accumulation of capital to the systematic oppression of women that resulted in the witch trials. So Jessie Jones has built this witch-like giantess figure who is trying to connect us to these 26 generations of women since the last burning of the witches in Europe to today, and try to create a deeper sense of what this feminist struggle has been all about.
I suppose I started making the film, it emerged out of a lot of research I was doing in around 2015, 2016 into the law and the female body. And I was thinking a lot about how you could tell a mythic story that would kind of create like a counter to what was happening in around the law and the female body, in particular in Ireland in around 2017, 2018, when we were, as part of a social movement, we were really pushing to change the constitution and its relationship to the female body. The other thing that was really important to me was to try and think back into like a really long duration for feminism, to not think about feminism from, first wave feminism, but to actually think back and imagine that feminism was 2 million years old. And, how could you create a structure of memory through an aesthetic experience that might conjure a collective idea about how we can have agency. So Alwyn Fure is the performer in the work, and working with Alwyn, she's such a skilled performer. So there's lots of very, very small, nuanced, symbolic things that happen in the film that if you have a very keen eye, you might pick up on. But it's really about trying to create this very condensed experience from looking at like the historical role of women, and in particular our relationship to capitalism and the witch trials, but trying to condense it into an experience for the viewer.
In the exhibition in the White Gallery at the Gates, we have a selection of international artists who I was just really compelled to in the ways that they'd found their voice within contemporary art. And the subjects that a lot of them are looking at are very much coming up against the law or systems of power and oppression as well. There's a wonderful work by Teresa Magoyas, the Mexican artist, who works with a number of Mayan women who will be appliquing or embroidering designs back into a fabric which was thrown over the body of a woman in Guatemala who'd been assassinated. And by doing this, it's kind of like they're reclaiming this trauma and power that was lost through the love of design and art and discussion about, the communities that can come together and what violence is against women in their communities.
For At the Gates, I've made 2 dresses which are intended for, I suppose, like a period dramatisation of a political pornography that I was particularly interested in, which is called The Whore's Rhetoric. The idea is to make this dramatisation of this book, and obviously because textiles play such a kind of a big role in the narrative, I thought the costumes are obviously extremely important.
It is a performance from the cycle To Be Continued, and it is a performance that works with the archive of slogans. It's an overview somehow of what is happening in the world. At a certain point, I've figured out that you can, through slogans, measure the temperature of what's happening in the world in a way. And the performance is picking up on the slogans themselves. And they are being written on windows. So what can happen is that you have a slogan from May 68 next to a Nazi slogan, And then the windows are being washed and slogans written on the dust again, as history does with historical violence.
In another work we have 90 paintings on the wall by Naveenji Kandossos that are all in the shape of a shooting range target, and on these she has the designs called IQ test patterns, I think, where people are taught to say shoot the yellow but not the small green, so they have to think while aiming. And she was very influenced by what she had come to understand about the attitude towards female terrorists, where it would be a known thing to shoot the women first. It's a really complex work that presents itself extremely visually. Tremble Tremble and At the Gates will be running at Talbot Rice Gallery in the middle of the Old College of the University of Edinburgh up until the 26th of January in 2019. We're free to enter, so anyone can come along.